Hey guys, long time no see. So this is kind of unexpected, but I'm gonna go ahead and start this series now because I feel like this build deserves it. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I picked up an AE86. After about a week or two of owning it, I think this is the second week, I did a bunch of digging on the history of this specific car, like I guess the previous owners and the history of it. And I'll kind of go through all of that with you as I do like a little walk around. So this is my 1987 Corolla. This is an SR5, not the GTS. So it came factory with rear drum brakes instead of disc brakes all the way around, which was extremely common in the 80s and even 90s. I picked this up about a couple weeks ago from a guy out in Spartanburg. And he was actually using this as a dedicated drift car. So it's got pretty much full suspension. The caster's been pushed forward to get it a little bit more slide happy. There's a bunch of stuff that's been done to this to make it a little bit more drifty, I suppose. Overall condition, it's not the best, but it's a lot better than most of these that are out there right now. The fenders need work. The fenders and quarters on both sides need work. There's some cracks, so you'll see I have some tape over some cracks and stuff to prevent any kind of water from getting in. Rust is pretty minimal for this chassis, so I'm pretty pleased with that. I traded my manual IS 300 for this, and I think it's been a pretty decent trade. Go ahead and open it up and show you the motor and stuff, and then after that I'll tell you more about the history of the car. It's got T3 door cards all the way around. It's got a bunch of aftermarket gauges, has aftermarket wiring, so there's no more 1980s unreliable wiring. Has a old stock seat in there and a Sparco. This is a pretty old seat, seen better days. It does have black carpet, which is nice. The rear stuff has been deleted, and it's got the T3 door cards all the way around. Rear seat delete. Obviously it has the harness bar with some harnesses, which I'm not a huge fan of these harnesses, but the amount of aftermarket stuff for this is pretty crazy. I can't remember the exact brand. Obviously I just picked this up, but it's got a short throw, a doubled in, which I'm probably going to delete, an NRG setup. The wheel is in the house right now. So in the trunk, we have a battery relocation, and that's actually a water reservoir to spray the rear tires down after a pass or two at the some drift events and whatnot. There's a little bit of surface rust up in here, which that's really easily taken care of. It's sitting on Fortunato coils. It's got all LED lighting all the way around to include the license plate, all the tail lights, turn signals, front lights, stuff like that. Here's the engine bay. So it's got a Mishimoto aluminum radiator. It's got an external oil cooler. It's got an inline thermostat. I replaced the Mishimoto fan shroud because I have not had good experiences with that in the past. It does have a 4AGE 16 valve with the bike carbs on it. These are specifically from a CBR 600 F4, I believe. I think it's an OBX header, but I'm not sure. It's been tubbed. No heater core. This thing is pretty bare bones, honestly, as bare bones as it gets. More about the motor. It's actually a 4AGE big port head. And this is actually, if my research is correct, this isn't a true 4AGE rear wheel drive. This is a 4AGE from an MR2. So it's originally a front wheel drive orientation. Since the MR2s had the motors mounted in the rear, the trans bolted up similar to a front wheel drive. This thing apparently has been cammed. I don't think it's built much further than stock other than the cams, and then obviously the bolt-ons and whatnot, but I want to say it's an aftermarket front bumper. It's definitely fiberglass, and it's got the skirts. I am not sure of the wheels or the specs, but I know they're 15s. I mean, that's pretty much it. It's really, really simple. Now, as far as the history of it goes, I believe the original, well, the owner before the guy I bought it from, he lives up in Virginia. I think his YouTube is Dixie Garage. He picked this up as a shell and swapped this 4AGE from an MR2 in here, and he did pretty much all of the groundwork for this chassis. So he got the motor, pretty much the entire drivetrain in place. He did the bike carbs, he did the engine bay paint, he did the body paint. And then the guy I got it from when I traded the IS300, he did all of the wiring. And I think he might have done some of the suspension work as well. Between those two owners, that's where all of this work has come from. It's pretty interesting. I'll go ahead and link his YouTube channel in like the description or whatever. But he definitely started from the ground up with this thing. Even before he got it, the fenders and quarter panels were kind of clapped, and none of them have been able to figure out a solution for those fenders and quarters, so that's what I'm going to try to do. As far as plans for this car, anything seal or gasket related on the motor I'm going to replace without dropping the entire motor. I guess that about wraps it up. There's not a whole lot to really talk about. It does need some love. Once I get all of the head gasket, the valve cover seals, all that kind of stuff, I'll go ahead and record that process, even though I didn't originally intend to, but I think it'll be cool to keep a record of this car still, especially since previous owners have done that in the past. Here are the fenders. You can see they're pretty clapped. This is actually the best one, and it's not even that good. You can see that clear's coming off. This is the worst one. So this one looks like they tried to roll it and they failed. And same thing with this. Pretty much all of them, all the way around, are pretty clapped. Definitely needs love, but this is a really good start. This has solid bones. The motor's there. The trans is there. The engine bay's pretty much already been done. Probably repaint because the paint and everything hasn't really been holding up well. Do a whole refresh and this thing should be ready to kick it. I think that about wraps up the whole car and the history of it. If you're interested in following the IS300 build, you can do so on Instagram. His Instagram tag is rearwheeldrive_JH. I'll go ahead and link that in the bio too. Well, that's all I have for this one. I hope you enjoy what's potentially in store for this. At the very least, this is documentation for my sake and the car's sake, just for fun. So, all right, see ya.
Were you in my dreams? Nah, you played them like movie. You bad and you bougie like the devil wears Prada. You always say you love me, never said it to him.